Greetings, dear listeners. Today, I invite you to step into a tiny yet enchanting world where porcelain figures come to life. This is a tale of courage and love, of daring escapes and the search for freedom. It's the story of a shepherdess and a chimney sweep, two delicate figurines with hearts full of determination. So, sit back and relax, breathe, and let me take you on this magical journey. The Shepherdess and the Chimney Sweep by Hans Christian Andersen, adapted as a short story to relax to and read by me, John Donaldson. Once upon a time, in a large country house, there was a cozy upstairs room filled with old furniture and countless little ornaments. One of the most gorgeous figurines was a beautiful porcelain shepherdess. She stood gracefully on a small table, her delicate face framed by soft curls. She wore a dress painted with tiny roses and held a shepherd's crook in her hand. Beside her stood a charming and handsome porcelain chimney sweep, holding his little ladder and smiling warmly. Though they were just figurines, their painted eyes seemed to sparkle with life. The shepherdess and the chimney sweep were deeply in love. Every day they looked deeply into each other's eyes and found comfort in their quiet companionship. But their happiness was overshadowed by a great worry. A large carved wooden figure of a satyr, a mythical creature from the stories of ancient Greece, half man, half goat, and he towered over them. The scary satyr, with horns on his head and a bad-tempered expression, had declared that the shepherdess would be his bride. He stood proudly on the tall cabinet, his wooden eyes seeming to watch everything in the room. He was part of the cabinet, carved into its frame, but claimed that he was still the ruler of the room, and because of that, he had the right to decide the fate of everyone in it. The shepherdess was frightened of the satyr. His size and commanding presence made him seem all-powerful, and she could not imagine a life separated from her beloved chimney sweep. The chimney sweep, though small, was, however, brave and determined. He reassured the shepherdess that they would not let the satyr control their lives. They would find a way to escape and be free. One evening, the satyr announced to the shepherdess that their wedding would take place soon. He said that the porcelain general, who also lived on the same cabinet, would perform the ceremony. The general, an old and stiff figure, agreed with everything the satyr said, nodding sternly from his place on the shelf. The shepherdess felt her heart sink. But the chimney sweep whispered to her that they would not wait to be forced into such a fate. They would escape, and that very night. As the room grew quiet and the people who lived there went to bed, the chimney sweep took the shepherdess's hand. He told her they must climb down from the table and find a safe place far away from the satyr. She trembled, uncertain about the dangers that lay ahead, but his steady confidence gave her courage. Together they carefully climbed down from their small table and on to the larger cabinet below. Their first challenge was to climb down the cabinet itself. It was a tall, imposing piece of furniture, and the way down was very dangerous. If they fell, they would break into hundreds of tiny little pieces. The shepherdess hesitated, but the chimney sweep encouraged her. Using his ladder, he helped her climb down slowly and carefully. The figures on the cabinet, the carved satyr and the porcelain general watched in silence, unable to follow, because the satyr was part of the cabinet, and, as it turned out, the general was a coward, too scared to follow them down himself. However, their anger was clear in their eyes as they glared at the little couple making their escape in front of them. When they reached the floor, the shepherdess and the chimney sweep marvelled at how vast the world seemed from this new perspective. The table and cabinet that had once been their entire world now loomed like a giant mountain above them. They rushed across the floor, dodging the shadows of furniture legs that stretched like enormous tree roots. The shepherdess gripped her crook tightly, while the chimney sweep held the ladder like a soldier holding a great spear. Their destination was a small window at the far end of the room. They had often admired the view of the outside world, even though they could not see much of it. The chimney sweep had told the shepherdess about the freedom that lay beyond it, a world full of open sky, beautiful birds, and fields of scented flowers. Reaching the window, however, was not so easy. They had to climb along a narrow ledge that ran along the wall. The ledge was very uneven, and every step felt like walking on the edge of a cliff. The shepherdess, unused to such adventures, stumbled and nearly fell, but the chimney sweep caught her hand just in time. He held her steady, reminding her that they were in this together. Finally, they reached the window. The chimney sweep used his ladder to climb up and push the glass open. A rush of cool night air greeted them, carrying the scent of flowers from the garden below. For the first time, the shepherdess saw the stars twinkling in the sky and felt the breeze on her porcelain face. It was more beautiful than she had ever imagined. But their escape was not yet complete. To truly leave the house, they had to climb down a drain pipe that ran along the outer wall. The chimney sweep led the way, showing the shepherdess where to step. The pipe was slippery, and the descent was slow and terrifying. The shepherdess, although afraid, trusted the chimney sweep completely. He encouraged her with every step, his steady voice guiding her through her fear. At last they reached the ground. They stood together in the garden, surrounded by soft grass and blooming night flowers. The world outside was so vast and open that the shepherdess felt both exhilarated and overwhelmed. She turned to the chimney sweep, her eyes filled with gratitude. For a moment they felt truly free. But their joy was short-lived. As they looked back at the house, the shepherdess began to worry. What if they didn't belong in this wide open world? She thought of their little table and how safe it had felt, even under the satyr's shadow. She asked the chimney sweep if they had made a mistake. He tried to reassure her, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. After a long pause, the shepherdess admitted that she missed their home, even with its challenges. The chimney sweep, though saddened, understood her feelings. He told her that if returning would make her happy, then they would go back together. They began the long climb back up the drainpipe, retracing their steps with care. When they finally returned to their table much later, they were exhausted but relieved. The shepherdess realized that her love for the chimney sweep gave her strength, no matter where they were. She felt braver now, knowing they had faced the unknown together. As for the satyr, he realized that as he was a permanent feature of the cabinet, he was helpless and had no power over the pair of porcelain figurines, but his wooden eyes seemed to glow with anger even more than before whenever he looked at the couple. The shepherdess and the chimney sweep stood side by side, their bond stronger than ever. They knew they might never escape the satyr's stare or his presence completely, but they had found something more important: the courage to face life's challenges together. And so they remained on their little table, not as prisoners, but as loving companions, steadfast in their love and unshaken by the trials they had overcome. The end.